Welcome back, guys. As always, Hot Mess Espresso is very proudly sponsored by 502 Media. You saw her in part one, and I had to have her back because we really need to get more into the nuances and nuanced language and all of those terms, especially because people were actually asking after this dropped, like a week ago. So I brought Joli Hamilton back to really dive into the foundation of part one. So if you've listened to it, fantastic. You're going to love this. If you haven't listened to it, what are you doing? Go back and listen and then come back. So, hi, Joli.
Hey, Heather. Yeah, we got to get into the details because
I
we
know.
were just getting to the juicy stuff.
I know. I was like, we have to have you back because there are so many terms, especially because this is becoming less closeted.
Yes.
And I mean, it's still taboo as hell. People are just like, what do you mean you need more than one person? And it's like, because expecting one person to check off every single one of your boxes, it's kind of a douche move.
Plus, sometimes we just want. Like, what if you just want? And if your partner's cool with that, what if you just get to? Sometimes I'm a little obnoxious about it. Most of the time, not. Most of the time, I'm a good little educator. But every once in a while, I'm like, the bottom line is my partners all like it and I like it. So
who cares?
Who cares? That's it.
Yeah. Well, we a lot of people have a hard time staying out of other people's bedrooms, so we're just,
That's real. That's real.
So this is your, I guess, trigger warning to get out of the episode if that makes you uncomfortable, because we're gonna get down and real dirty. So
yes, let's do that. Let's
do it. Okay, so the nesting partner thing, what those terms, let's just kind of go through those, I guess, one by one. I know there's a trillion terms and everybody has different language for different ones, but the ones that are like, I guess, the most common and even maybe the less common ones, let's dive into that.
Yeah, so then the term nesting partner I think is actually really helpful, because if you're like just scoping out non-monogamy and trying to figure out, like, am I willing to date somebody who's doing that, right? You might not even be sure that you're cool with it. But let's face it, if we're on a dating app right now, like, the likelihood is you're going to see people who are like, I'm already open. And now you have to decide. And if that's not for you, it's not for you. That's fine. Totally fine. But I find so many people are like, well, this person's interesting. And knowing the language that they might put into their profile can help you understand, like, what am I getting into here?
Right.
What am I looking at? Because we no longer have just the standard, okay, if you're single, then it means you're single. You're not seeing anyone. Instead, you might see someone say something like, I'm open, I have a nesting partner and a long distance partner. We all know what long distance partner is. It means someone who doesn't live nearby. But a nesting partner, generally speaking, means I share my habitat with them. So usually it'll mean like we live together full time. Occasionally I'll come across somebody who's like, I have a nesting partner, but they're only here half time. We all have unique arrangements. And then we get into other details where sometimes people will say things like, well, I'm co-parenting. And we often think about co-parenting in divorce situations, right? We think about these two people were together and now they're not, but because they made children together or they adopted children together, they are raising them together. So they're just doing that apart. But co-parenting is also a term that we can find over in non-monogamy, because I may commit to parent with somebody who I was never romantically involved with. I have a commitment to them that I'm showing up that way. So nesting and co-parenting, I like to put those together. And then also, there are a lot of terms like anchor partner, primary partner, secondary partners, partner. Like, there can be, I've heard people also toss in some of the more spiritual woo-woo terms, like this is my twin flame or my soul partner. The bottom line is, if you hear a term, even if you think you know what it means, ask the person. That is a great question to ask them, because they used the term, but you don't know how they're using it. So if you hear somebody, for instance, say anchor partner, I mean, what the hell does that mean? There's no intuitive sense of like exactly what that is. How I use that term is to mean this person is rock solid in my life. We have built around each other, whether we live together or not. We have built so that we accommodate each other in our changing seasons. Like, this person's not going anywhere.
Right.
And then you hear people using the term primary partner. And primary partner, in some circles, people are like, don't use that language
Mhm.
because it automatically inserts this idea that one person comes first all the time. And a lot of us are trying to unpack our mononormativity. So actually, we don't want to reinforce that idea. Other people really like the term primary, but the trouble with primary is it implies that everybody else is secondary or
Mhm.
tertiary. And
Mhm.
that's where we get into, like, the first time somebody called me a secondary partner, I was like, whoa, I didn't agree to that yet. We got to talk language. We got to talk about this because
Right.
I was living in a triad with them. I
Mm.
had not agreed. Like, we had come together and said, we're all going to be adults loving each other. And so I didn't anticipate hearing secondary. It all worked out over time. It was really a semantics issue of like, well, I was here first. And so I kind of just thought that's the language we'd use.
Right.
But we do have to get really into the weeds about this stuff because that day that somebody just tossed the language like, well, but you're the secondary partner, so I was like, you know what, I can handle everything you said after. So like, what was happening was we were debating about like who had access to Saturday date nights. Not, I don't care. Like, I could totally
Right.
negotiate on that. But the word secondary hurt, right?
Mhm.
And so we just renegotiated about how do we talk about this, and we landed on a kind of sexy term, paramour, which I really
Ooh.
liked. It was giving like romanticy. It was I was
Yes,
happy
I'm
with that. I
here
was like,
for it.
okay, sure, yeah, I'm not married to this dude, but paramour, I can take it. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
There's so, yeah, really the bottom line is we don't know what people are saying off the bat, so we gotta ask them. And that can come across as, like, some people are really excited to tell you about their situation, and other people are like, "Ugh, I don't want to." And then some people are like, "I don't use labels." That's actually, I think, the hardest one because if you
Yeah.
I understand the premise of not wanting a label, but, like, I imagine you and I, like, trying to have a conversation where you're
Yeah.
trying to get to know my life, and I'm like, "Well, I don't use labels." Now we're like, Okay, um, where do I even begin?"
Right, like, I'm gonna need a board, like, on Criminal Minds with, like, the face and the
Yes.
name and some lines because otherwise I'm not gonna be able to know, like, who is who.
Yeah, and this is where it gets tricky because in, like, the mono world, right, the
Mhm.
world of mononormativity, we often are only thinking about people's roles rather than their full humanness. So this is actually a
Ooh.
really actionable step all of us can take, right? So I have a husband.
Right.
He's also my nesting partner.
Mhm.
I also refer to him as an anchor partner because we have committed to co-parenting and doing all the things and making sure that we're in each other's lives, even if we stop having sex, even if we stop living together. So I would use all of those terms,
Mhm.
but none of them actually describe him, right? Like,
Yeah.
he is still a unique individual.
Mhm.
He's weird and he's problematic and he's also awesome and so, so amazing.
Right.
And so when we get in to know somebody and their people, we're actually asking to be like deeper in relationship to them, which is, I think about this like when I want to know one of my newer friends better, the easiest way for me to get to know them is to ask about their other friends. Right. Like I need to like invite them to be more fully
Yeah.
like, express themselves. How do they relate to other people instead of getting too narrowly focused on just like the roles, like, oh, so do you have a best friend already? Oh, then that slot's taken. What if we just actually get to know these people who
Mhm.
others are relating to and don't go with the assumption, which is hard.
Right. No, it absolutely is. So when it comes to your dynamic, not to totally put you on the spot, but how does that work? Not even just with terms, but how does kind of
Yeah.
all of that work, especially like keeping others' privacy and things like that? Because, not everybody's out like as out and proud as you are, which
Yep.
I love, but also like I can totally understand people being like it's still like a little like I don't feel like answering questions about that. So how does all of
Yes.
that work with your specific dynamic?
Yeah. Well, honestly, in my life, first off, it changes, right? Like, I date
Mhm.
people, then I'm not dating people.
Right.
I've gone through periods of time where I'm like, the dating apps are crickets for me. Like, I mean, who
Mhm.
hasn't had a dry spell?
Yeah.
Like, so sometimes I'm like, yes, I'm polyamorous and I have one partner. Why? Because nobody's gone on a date with me. I'm not
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to say. Like the
Yeah.
same reason anybody might. So in my dynamic, it shifts over time, and maybe the hardest part for me has been that I am so out that
Mhm.
I would love to have more of the people who I date and more of the people who I sleep with like be a part of my public life. But the bottom line is they don't want to. And I don't just respect that. I actually celebrate it for them. Like they have access to something that I don't. They
Mhm.
actually get to be more private about areas of their life than I do. And I made a decision to be out, not just for myself, but to be out as a representative of, you know what? Non-monogamy is actually it can be just boring and pleasant. It's not all
Right.
drama and slapped faces and throwing pies at each other. It actually can just be like a boring soccer mom vibe. And
Mhm.
so right now I have a couple of long distance partners, and one of them I'm going through a pretty significant change with. So I don't
Mhm.
even know exactly what to call that partnership right now because we're like,
Mhm.
what do we do? But honestly, the most I don't have another local partner who is like deeply embedded in my life right now. And that can be hard because I can almost get caught in my own reinforcing of mononorms because I have this anchor partner. He happens to be, 6 foot tall, broad shoulders, and look a certain way. So
Mhm.
we get pegged as like a very cis het normative looking mono couple. And I'm like, oh, we're both queer. We have been poly the whole time we've been together, but here we are walking down the street holding hands. So honestly, that's one of the hardest parts about my dynamic is when people see me out on dates, they often still imagine, like if I'm in my local area on a date, I can see like my local coffee shop guy, like just assuming that this is just a friend. And I'm like, it's not. But there's just these assumptions that happen, and it can feel quite different depending on what you want out of non-monogamy. So I actually feel a little invisible in those moments. But I have had so many clients and so many friends who are like, no, I love that. That privacy actually sort of builds the tension of like, nobody knows what we're doing. We're
Mhm.
flaunting the rules. We feel
Right.
oppositional. And that can feel really disruptive and good. And there's no right way to do this. And a lot of people are not sure how out they want to be for lots of reasons.
Mhm.
So there's a there's a process I talk about with everybody about coming out, like really reflecting on what is it that you want out of your outness.
Mhm.
And one of the big wins, I went through this with a, a man, I almost called him a boy, a man I was dating who it turned out the secrecy was a huge part of the turn on for him because once he started to come out, he was like, he just wasn't that into it. And I was like, oh, we found your kink, baby.
I was just gonna say,
I'm
okay.
like, we found it. Okay. So we actually had to kind of go back into the closet to
Mhm.
make it fun for him. And I had to then decide, like, does that work for me? Do I want to be somebody's secret? And we dated for about 8 more months and it was fine. But at the end of it, I was like, yeah, I think that was it for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be somebody else's secret anymore. I've done it off and on and it doesn't really work for me. But I have so many people in my world who are like, yeah, it works great for me. I feel like I have enhanced privacy because nobody's expecting this about my life
Yeah.
and they like it. So, no right or wrong to it, but it is a really important part of like the initial few dates of conversation. Like, how are we going to navigate this? Because, like, people can't date me and not, then be seen with me. And therefore, because I am publicly out, yeah, dots could be connected. It's true.
Right.
So we have to negotiate about that. It's a little tricky.
Yeah. Speaking of negotiating, we had obviously in part 1 talked about jealousy, communication, all
Yeah.
of that. Um Obviously an anchor partner does not mean that like you get permission or approval for all of that, but does their like opinions and their feelings like matter a little more in an anchor partner, or like how do you guys decide when like you're gonna add another person in, or is it kind of just more of a like it's already been negotiated that's a little bit of a revolving door and like I
Yeah.
don't want to say free for all, but for lack of a better term, free for all.
Yeah. maybe that term is okay. So let's back out just a level. Imagine like
Perfect.
if you were watching someone else having their relationship. There are all these assumptions we make. Like the assumptions start with these two people have a commitment, and in that commitment, they've made a bunch of connections with
Mhm.
each other that are all emotional. We can't see the inside of that. We don't know
Right.
what's going on. But they've
1000%.
also done things like they bought a house or they've signed a lease together. They have a
Right.
dog together. They've like made babies, right? Those things we can see. And
Mhm.
that tends to be what, even from the inside of a relationship, we have all of these obligations to each other, all these pre commitments. So,
Mhm.
of course, we do need to take into account. So, for instance, let's use the dog. The dogs are actually my favorite example. If we
Yeah.
have two dogs together and we both want to be out all night, who is making sure the dogs were fed the night before, walked the night before, that they're cared for appropriately in the morning, and that we're not both just sleeping over somebody else's house? And like, who's doing that? Who's
Yeah.
And it sounds silly, right? Except it's
Not
not.
at all.
It's
I
like,
have a dog. I get
yeah,
it.
yeah, like this is a big deal, and we have to now negotiate. So that can feel like what we're doing is giving permission. Like we can get into this, like, can I or can't I? What we
Right.
really have to do is dig into, wait, we're both autonomous individuals.
Mhm.
How do we share responsibility for something while still allowing each other to be autonomous? That takes an immense amount of kindness, right?
Mhm.
And this is a completely transferable skill. I think every monogamous person also does this or needs to do this if they're not taking seriously that you impact the other. We just do. But at the same time, one of the reasons the word anchor partnership comes up is people are trying to get out of the idea that this person owns me, that they own my
Oh.
time, that they are entitled to having like first dibs on everything, or they're entitled to know that where I'll be all the time. As we step out of that into, what if instead of entitled, it's I get to, because we are weaving together. So for
Mhm.
instance, phone location comes up. A lot of people are like, yeah, of course I have phone location on my partner. I always want to know where they are, and I feel like I'm entitled to. And many people are surprised to find out that in fact I have phone location on my phone, and I do share it. I share it with multiple partners. I share it
Yep.
with my kids. I like that. I also have nothing to hide. But but along with sharing phone location came a lot of discussions about, well, what are we going to do if you don't like what you saw? What if you
Ooh.
check my location and you don't enjoy it? How are we going to deal with that? Because a lot of that will come back to like, well, I don't think you should do this or that. But if we have agreements that are really sufficient, like they really help us not be in a free for all, but in a, we actually take care of each other where we need to, and we are
Mhm.
autonomous to make our own decisions within the scope of yes, and we show up for each other, then yeah, it is a free for all. And but that doesn't mean people aren't going to have their feelings hurt. It
Right.
doesn't mean, like, my husband has scheduled a date before and I'm like, "Oh, I just assumed we were doing our thing. I just assumed, like, I made the assumption that
Mhm.
you were going to be here because that is the night Gilded Age comes out, and I thought we were going to be boring married people in that moment and sit and watch the boring old people show that night. And instead, you're doing something that is decidedly not boring." I feel a way about that.
Right.
But within the scope of our agreements, he decides when his dates are. And my assuming that we were going to watch that was based on nothing other than that's when I thought. There was no date on the calendar. I hadn't asked about it. We didn't have a steady time that we always watch it that night. I
Mhm.
just assumed. And something that comes up a lot as people are transitioning into non-monogamy is realizing, holy, a lot of my relationship is based on my assumptions.
Yep.
Like the stories I say, I make up in my head about this
Mhm.
is how it's going to go. And now with more moving parts, there's more things to be not what I expected. And foiled expectations, that will get you. That'll send you into a tailspin faster than anything else. We don't like to be disappointed, us humans.
No.
So you asked basically about, like, is it about permission giving? And ideally, we move out of any permission giving phase as soon as possible. And to get there, we have to be really cognizant of what have I committed to? What will I
Right.
do with this person? And that's where a lot of people find, oh, I'm dropping a lot of balls because now I can go have this really exciting date over here, or I can go on vacation over there, or I can go. And that sounds like more fun than going home to make sure the dog is fed at 6:30 in the morning. So we
No.
have to have this like real coming to terms with, oh, just because I said we are going to do polyamory or we're going to do non-monogamy doesn't mean I don't have commitments. Doesn't mean I don't have commitments to my life that impinge on that supposed freedom.
Yeah, how do you guys kind of, and I'm just saying you guys because like obviously this
Yeah.
would probably be your advice for any couple that's dealing with this. But how do you guys work through those assumptions? Is it kind of more self-talk of these are the negotiations, or do you kind of say it out loud and you're like, "Hey, this is where my head's at. I realize it's something I need to deal with, but like this is where my head's at just so you know."
Yeah, we have several practices that, and I would recommend this for anyone. First off, when you're first doing this, daily check ins, daily
Yeah.
calendar check ins. Like it is so shocking to go from, I thought my partner was just going to be there all the time doing the exact thing I thought to,
Mhm.
oh, now there are little shifts, little changes. So a daily logistics check in, so necessary. We also, we built agreements, not, we didn't sit down and say, like, let's make an agreement that'll just like cover us. It'll cover our butts. We'll know exactly what the rules are for it,
Mhm.
and we'll just go forward. Instead, we made small agreements. I call them minimum viable agreements. These little
Ooh.
tiny agreements that get us through, like, let's see what we need this weekend. Like, let's find out by doing what we need this weekend. So, an agreement that goes from Thursday night till Monday morning for me covers a weekend because I don't like to work on Fridays.
Right.
So, I will make that agreement with a partner and then turn and make sure that like it makes sense in my life. That micro agreement that I just made will help me make visible all those assumptions, right? It's, what am I asking my partner to do this weekend? Did I expect that they were going to be home and we were doing yard work together? Like that's where I make visible the assumptions. So this brings us to maybe the most boring part, but very, very much the most real part. There's
Mhm.
a lot of conversations to have.
Yeah.
People talk about like it's all about communication. Yes and no. It's definitely about having the community. Like we have to have the
Yep.
conversations. We cannot avoid them. If you are a person who doesn't like to talk about schedules, don't do polyamory. It's just like you're just asking for trouble. You might do better actually being solo polyamorous where you are your own first partner.
Mhm.
You are committed to you. You live on your own. Like you're like, I am not sharing obligations with others. I date and I build things with others, but I don't weave myself into the intricacies of their day-to-day life so that I can be there for myself.
Yeah.
But like that wouldn't work in my complicated household. We have to be willing to have those conversations about
Mhm.
the juicy stuff and the really boring stuff. Of course, the other thing people really like to make agreements about is what will you not do with other people? Like they want like to
That's a
take
big
stuff
one.
off the table, right? Like
Yeah.
let's get real. The number of people I've worked with that are like, so she's not allowed to have anal sex with anybody else. She's not allowed to do any DS play with anyone else. She's not allowed to do, and they'll just be this list.
Mhm.
And then I'll see another list like he's not allowed to, fall in love with anyone else. He's not allowed to talk like
Yeah, that's that because that's so possible.
exactly, exactly. So the idea behind it, like at the outset, I think when we're excited, we're balancing the excitement of I get to go do all these new things with, wait a minute, my partner's going to go do new things. And where that balance usually hits is I'm going to make rules for them that help me feel safe.
Mhm.
And, and it doesn't work. And then they make rules for you that help them feel it doesn't actually work. We have to flip the script and learn how to make commitments that do actually work. And one of the big ones is, yeah, feelings don't give a fuck about your agreements.
Yeah,
Feelings are
no.
going to happen. What we do with them, we can all make promises about how we'll behave. That is true. I can say one of my favorite things to think about is like I have a standing agreement with my nesting partner that I will not make any humans with other people. I will not offer to raise any other people's children right now. And I will not buy property or open businesses with other people right now.
Yeah.
Now, and so people often hear that and they're like, well, duh, don't we all agree to that? Like, no, I don't believe I've agreed to anything unless I've had the conversation.
Right.
But here's the thing, the second one on that list, actually the second, third, and fourth, I'm not going to make any more babies. I'm done. I made 7. I'm good. No
Yeah.
more making babies. But I might want to raise a child with someone else. I don't know that that's off the table forever. I could. In fact, my best friend had a baby and I definitely had a hand in that. Like I was up to my elbows in that. And if she'd wanted me in more, I probably would have gone headlong into it.
Right.
So that would have been a point of, okay, we have an agreement, but agreements need to have revisit codicils. Like we need to revisit them regularly and make sure they still make sense. And we also need to make space for, and sometimes something's going to come along and we're going to question whether that agreement still makes sense. Like if I were asked by one of my business besties if we want to do a collaboration, I gotta say, like right now, I'd be like, oh, absolutely. I'm going back and I'm renegotiating whether I will have another business with people because my youngest kid just turned 18, because I have more free time now. Like, things have changed. So maybe it'll change. But the thing we tend to make rules about is things like sex and love. And the heart doesn't care. And then the body gets super, super interested in the thing that we outlaw.
That's true. We always want what we can't have.
Right. So I'm always very hesitant to say that it'll work, to like take a particular act off the table, because I'm like, oh, you drew a big bullseye around that act.
Yeah.
It's tricky ground. I understand, and we need to state what our limits are, but that is a place where many people find it sounded like a good idea, but now all I can think about is this.
Now, do you find with clients and stuff, because we're on that whole like list of stuff, do you find that like if they both are mutually agreeing to like one aspect when it comes to sex, that like, you know, we won't like, let's say, like, you know, finish inside, like if that's a mutual thing for both partners, does that tend to work?
Well, the thing is, it'll work until it doesn't. Right. So we can have, I like to think of those things as, these are my requests, understanding that that's not my body. And so making hard and fast rules about this, we have to remember that we're now going to change over time. So now I would have follow-up questions though. If somebody had that as like, this is my request. One of my follow-up questions would be, tell me about your pregnancy control. Tell me about your STI protocol. Tell me like what's going on here. Because I have very different questions if we're talking about 2 people who are not on birth control than I do 2 people who are using multiple forms of birth control. Right? Like those are different things. But also then I have follow-up questions like, for instance, do you know he has a vasectomy, or did he just tell you? Like
that's a big one.
It's a big one. Or, I mean, well, and here I am. I have an IUD. I have had multiple men request that they are able to finish inside. And I'm like, so dudes, I have told you I have an IUD. You have not asked for proof. I have a million children. Is this feeling like a safe idea for you?
No, because like, I don't know, like 7 children says you're pretty fucking fertile, ma'am.
This does not sound like a good idea. Every time I get this request, I'm like, we've already talked about, think this through. But this also is a great point to talk about. Like, we often make our relationship decisions in either a very cool state where we're trying to be very methodical. You know, I call those are Saturday morning conversations. And then we actually live our decisions Saturday nights. We are living those decisions often with some alcohol in our system, with some mushrooms in our system. We're like living into those decisions we need to make sure that we've made practical decisions that will actually play out the way that works for us in the big picture. So for instance, that like, okay, are we going to exchange bodily fluids of a very specific nature? How am I going to know whether that's okay
Yeah.
for me in the moment? Like, how am I going to actually, and for many people, they find, oh, it's actually easier to just have a hard and fast rule of condoms because
Yep.
they know themselves through experience that if it's a question in the air and now they're aroused, now their decision-making capacity is very taxed, and that's not a good time to be making a decision.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we need to do cool decision making, but also be really practical about it. And for those of us who've been out of the dating pool for a while and then head back in because of non-monogamy, I think it's extra challenging, right? Because
Yeah.
like if you haven't dated for 20 years and now you're dating again and you're like, wait, condoms. Oh, okay. Yeah. Slow down because we got some stuff to cover. Like you need an update on your sex ed.
It's actually kind of funny because even like monogamously speaking, especially when it comes to sex, like people do not have, I never had these conversations in my 20s, and now I'm over 30, I'm divorced, I'm like out dating again, and all of a sudden I'm like, when was your last STD test? Like,
Yeah.
what are your feelings on and like I've had my tubes tied, but like that doesn't like,
That's
you
not
know,
protecting you from syphilis.
no, it's not.
Like,
So,
thanks.
you have these conversations, and like it's so funny because in our 20s we all used to think that like people had a look about them or something like that that would like give you a heads up, and it's like no.
No.
No,
Yeah.
that's not the case. And like I feel like the older you get, the more communication around sex happens, thank God, because I'm having all these conversations with these people, and it's actually kind of nice because it's just like, okay, like we're having, adult conversations about things, and instead of like asking questions about sex that turn into some form of sexting, it's like we're literally having these like in-depth, like what we're into, what we're not into questions, like we're talking, like you and I are talking right now.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to be doing that in your 30s, but also like I really wish I could go back and tell 23-year-old me to just have the damn conversations.
Yeah. Be
Because
the
like a
awkward one.
a
Do the
guy
thing.
that literally says, and I'm gonna say this for all the 20 somethings, and you can be a guy, girl, whatever you identify as, if somebody is saying it just doesn't feel the same, and that's their only argument for not using a condom, block their number.
Yeah. Just done.
Just do it.
Just done.
Okay? It is not worth the, really awkward trip to your gyno or, your Planned Parenthood or anything like it. It ain't worth it.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And they just told you that they are more concerned
About
about
them.
their pleasure than about your pleasure because you can't so let's talk about the girls, right? Like
Mhm.
we can't have an orgasm unless we can relax. Like there are parts of our brain that literally have to relax to
Louder
get
for the
there.
men in the back.
Yeah. So if I'm in the back of my mind thinking about the fact that I have just crossed my fingers and hoped that this is okay, I'm not going to relax. So now, okay, we were worried about you not feeling exactly the same sensation, but now I'm going to be a mile away from an orgasm until you're out the door and I finish myself. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
This is my husband actually said something about this a while ago on our podcast. He's like, yeah, it feels different. It's not worse. The idea that it's worse is actually, that's conditioning. Just reprogram yourself. They're different sensations. We like variety. I use condoms with my husband sometimes for fun because it's different. Like it's, and I
Frankly,
think
there's
we
no mess
forget
either.
that, like,
It's really nice.
yeah, like there's a million reasons to play with variation,
Mhm.
right? And the idea that that we should just skip over steps that we would tell a 16-year-old to do, like
Mhm.
why?
Yeah,
How's that
literally.
going to work out? And I wish it were true that everybody was having these conversations, but we're not. And the more fun you want to have, the more we have to have the conversations. But like you said, they're also intimacy building. Like when I am messaging with a person who's willing to talk about what they need for STI protocol, like what makes them feel good, what they want for aftercare. They have questions for me. Like I'm pretty much guaranteed that right from the first time we have sex, it's going to be decent. Even if it's not perfect, it's going to be decent because
Yeah.
we're already building intimacy. So like I can go in with this, like, yeah, we're not just relying on, ooh, this is hot. We're relying on, this is hot and I feel safe. I feel excited because I know what direction to lean. It's so worth it. It's so worth
Safety
it.
is literally the most attractive thing because yeah, if these people are having these conversations, I'm gonna tell you right now, like I'm dating this guy and we've had multiple conversations about these things. And I am literally like, as weird as this is gonna sound to some people, I am like more turned on during these like mundane conversations than I am like, well, obviously I am with the buildup and stuff, but like, and if you're listening to this, sorry, Dad. But these mundane conversations because we're building that like that trust, that safety, and it's like if I feel safe, I'll pretty much do anything. Like,
Right. Like it will be so much better.
yeah,
If
like
you,
I'm more attracted to you having these
mm-hmm.
conversations than if we just skipped it and went right to it.
Yep.
Like
And
now, when you get to my house, like let's go.
right. And the idea too that this somehow dampens like this, a lot of people have built up a mystique around spontaneity. Like, I just want it to be so hot that I have to rip your clothes off. And it really, the thing that comes to mind for me is like, you can have both.
Yeah,
This is not like you just said, that's a perfect example of, we're texting about this. We're back and forth. That's the simmering. We're simmering
yeah, that's a
before the
buildup.
date. We're building anticipation. Anticipation and longing are an incredible aphrodisiac. We can still get to the moment then. Plus, now I get to the moment and I can have safety and tear your clothes off because
Yeah,
we already have the plan. And that's, I've also seen this happen at sex parties, like where people who've never been to a sex party and they show up at one that's been really well organized, and they show up and there's some gentle like music playing and some a little bit of a warm-up circle where we do some hopes and fears. Everybody gets shown around, like, here's the towels, here's the lube, here's all of the
love that.
paraphernalia you could want. People who are walking into that are like, wait, sex could have been like this? And this whole time, I've been thinking that the best sex is spontaneous, because there's nothing spontaneous about a really well planned sex party. Like, I
Right.
put a lot of work into hosting that. Like, that's a lot of effort. And it's incredibly safe and luscious feeling. Like, you relax in a way that you didn't even realize you could. So this
Yeah.
is about like shifting the imagination out of this falsehood that spontaneous is best into a new way.
Yeah, and you can still have the spontaneous because if you think about it, like you're building that foundation with somebody, they come home and all of a sudden you're up against a wall and like
Yeah.
your shirt's getting ripped off because they had a rough day, but you've already done that work.
Yeah, it's all
So
the
you know it's
protocols in
okay.
place. You're good. Yeah.
Exactly.
The
Like,
safe words
hello.
are established. Aftercare is planned. All the things.
Mhm.
Yes, 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 yes,
Yes.
yes.
Like, ugh.
Yeah.
I could talk about this all day, honestly, especially when it comes to like sex. Being in my 30s, all of a sudden I'm like a fucking guru because I'm just like all of these things that I wish I had like actually done in my 20s.
Yeah.
Like now I'm just like, now I was more selective. I was literally celibate for 8 months because I was just like, no, like hookups just aren't my thing. And if they're for you, I'm not slut shaming, I promise.
No, but
Like,
raise the bar. Even
yeah,
on hookups. Like,
literally.
I like raise the bar.
Mm-hmm.
We get to have better. We really do. Like, and then it can get better as we like. So if you do want to have a hookup, awesome. And then if you are building something with someone, like, it gets better and better because we bothered to have these conversations. And that's where, I mean, for me, I went from being super monogamous, like I married my high school sweetheart, through to my early 30s, immediately jumped into polyamory, like living in a triad, chaos of like trying to figure out how to do this. But the biggest increase in my pleasure was, well, we started talking about stuff, because having multiple partners immediately introduced the idea of like, oh, we have to say things that up till now we had all just been thinking, well, you don't talk about that. You just let it happen. So, and we also know, like, non-monogamous folks have better sexual health outcomes because they're having these conversations.
Yeah.
And when I say better, I mean better than people who are in, well, monogamous situations, because monogamous situations, if we take them as a whole, include all of the people who are cheating.
Mm-hmm.
Because cheating happens within the context of monogamy quite frequently. I know people are used to this, but we know it happens. And you don't want to see an extra STI panel show up on your insurance plan. You don't want to see the condoms show up. Like, this is like, we don't do the things that non-monogamy frees up the energy for.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of the side benefits is people often wake up to, oh, I didn't even know that I was kind of asleep at the wheel in my sex life.
Yeah. And I think like we'd kind of talked about in part 1, there seems to be like a lot of slut shaming that is involved in non-monogamy. Oh, I touched a button. Yeah. Can we go into that?
Absolutely. Well, okay, let's start with this. I shifted to non-monogamy when I was still nursing my youngest child. So Madonna Horror Complex came to my doorstep, rang the bell, and then punched me in the face. That was not nice. Because I was seen as a mother, right? So not only the slut shaming of how dare you want to have multiple partners, but also you're a mother.
Because that's all you are.
Right?
Don't you know that? You're just a mother. You're not a depth psychologist. You're not, Joli. You're just a mom.
You're just a mom. You're just a mom. And I did not realize how intense that would be, but the combination of the people who get angry because they actually wish that they could have multiple sex partners, but slut shaming is how they keep themselves in the box. Like, so they're slut shaming themselves. They have a desire to be slutty, but they don't want to act on it. So they make a story up that says that this is bad and dangerous. It is not inherently dangerous. It is not. But slut shaming is there for a lot of reasons. It's also there to control us at a macro level, right? Like, it's wild to see how, like, I've gone to doctors who immediately jump to the conclusion that because I asked for an STI panel, like, they can jump to a lot of conclusions. And I actually enjoy it because I like ruffling a doctor's feathers. So I'll just lean right into that moment. And it has been getting better and better. But it's fascinating to see, like, my husband, every man I have ever seen, I always ask them, like, so when you ask, because they're married, and I'm saying, hey, I need you to get an updated panel before we have sex. So one of the questions I'll ask them just for fun is, how did your doctor respond when you asked for the panel? I've never had a man report back that they were asked any question. Just, yep, okay, head over there. That's it. That's it. I, on the other hand,
women,
have been asked many questions. Now, I have also had some amazing providers who don't bat an eyelash. I live in Massachusetts, so I do feel like I am very lucky to have some very open and conscientious providers in my life. But I mean, an ER visit with a doctor who looked at me like my kidney infection had to do with the fact that, because he had to ask about all these other things. Oh my God, the judgment when I was like, well, these are my stats. Yes, I've had a panel. Yes, I know it's not this stuff because okay. Yeah. So it's real. And then of course there's our friends. And maybe this is actually the tenderest, because I think we expect to see some slut shaming at a societal level.
Yeah.
It sucks. I don't like it, but we expect it.
Right.
But I did not expect to see the level of people who purportedly cared about me, they were envious. They were deeply envious. And how that came out was slut shaming.
Of course.
This is maybe one of the most important reasons to have this conversation, is to remember that, first off, just because somebody's non-monogamous does not actually mean they're having a lot of sex. We don't know. Like, asexual people are non-monogamous too. So we don't actually know that, but even if it is, what's a lot exactly? Like
Yeah.
everybody's got a different threshold, a different life number that they feel like is like the mark of a slut, or a different number of times you have sex that makes you like.
Yeah, like here's the crazy thing. It's not just non-monogamous people that may or may not be having a lot of sex. I know monogamous people that literally have been together for over 10 years and it's still like every other day.
Yeah, yeah. And so is that slutty? Is slutty about having multiple partners, having sex with lots of multiple partners? I have friends who definitely are in the 4 digits of sex partners. That is way beyond my pay grade. I just don't have the time. I've
Yeah,
never
that's
had the time to dedicate.
I don't have the
I
energy.
kind of aspire to that level of sluttiness. That sounds awesome. But,
Yeah.
I I think that there's a misconception that we
Mhm.
often just hold at an unconscious level, that there's some amount of sex that's correct. And we see this come out when I ask people, like, so how is your sex life? And they'll say, well, I have like the regular amount. Or a guy just told me this on a dating app recently. I was like, so how often do you like to have sex? And he's like, regular amount. What is that?
What I
There's no
think cuz
such
like
thing.
studies show like 3 times a week is the average like
But the
recommended.
But the average of what? Like the average of people during what phase of life? Because I'll tell you,
Mhm.
3 times a week, not the average in the first year after a baby is born.
Nope.
3 times a week, not the average if neither of the individuals in the relationship have ever had any kind of comprehensive sex education or been able to talk about sex. No, they tend to have all kinds of they'll have spikes and dips.
Mhm.
And we just make up a story in our head about like what's the right amount. And
Mhm.
it's so telling about us. So whatever
Yep.
that is, like whatever the amount is that's a lot for you, just remember for somebody else, that's a Tuesday. It's
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yep.
It's fine. And I also think that there are plenty of us out here doing non-monogamy who the part of what we're doing is deconstructing from purity culture,
Oh
deconstructing
my
from
god.
monogamous culture, right?
Church kid right here. So
Yeah.
I totally get that deconstructing the purity culture thing.
Yeah. And
It
so
was yeah, it was very bizarre when I got married and all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, sex was like kind of a bad thing, but now that I've signed a piece of paper, now they not only is it okay, but they like encourage it and they're
you have
literally
to.
like all of a sudden that's all that matters in your marriage is how much you're putting out for your spouse and it's like, ew. It
It's
felt
like
very weird. It felt very
exactly.
weird.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Not to mention the purity culture balls and the rings and yes.
Oh
Oh my
god.
God. So many
I'm
things.
so glad my parents never made me do a purity ring. It was just like
Oh
you
my
need to wait
God.
until you're married. Like they totally did. But
Shh.
I was definitely a year and a half in their wedding photo. So
Yep.
that like
Yeah. Like,
little whole waiting
hey.
until I'm like, look, I can do the math and like that face matches my baby picture. So this is which cousin allegedly, Dad?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Like, how
it
about
was
no, 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 no.
try again.
I when I think about that, I always think of I have clients that they come into non-monogamy as part of that, right? So
Mhm.
the nice part about that is they're often just like shedding all of this garbage, all of these
Mm.
burdens they've been carrying. So a lot of them are actually quite defiant about the slut shaming. So it's okay, like it's okay, fine. Yeah. There's a reclaiming of
Yeah.
my sexuality,
Mhm.
my pleasure, centering that, allowing that to be important. And if non-monogamy is part of your journey with that, more power to you. It's like it is one of the things. Often when people start deconstructing, they all of a sudden monogamy comes on the table like, "Oh, am I doing monogamy because I want to or because it's just what was expected of me?" Because I am all for a conscious monogamous choice. Like I like
Yeah.
this, here's how I do it. I understand what my fidelity is. I understand why I'm doing this. I understand that I do not have to. I actually am choosing. That's completely different. But
Mhm.
when we start pulling at that thread of, these are all social constructs and you get to make up whatever you want. Often monogamy starts to unravel a little bit too.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've talked about dating apps a few times, and I've actually, this is years ago, but been on a couple of dates with men that were in open relationships and stuff like that. For somebody that is exploring possibly being part of like an open relationship, but not necessarily the couple part, if that makes any sense. And I know
It
you'll
does.
probably correct me on the terms, but if you're looking to do that, especially in this day and age where all of a sudden every other man on Tinder, I'm
Yep.
just saying men because that's what I
It's
have
just true.
seen from my
Mhm.
experience. Every other man is in an open relationship. And while I love to see non-monogamy like being more common, how does one kind of find the red flags, or what are some red flags to look for if and again, this is just for my, if you're dating a straight man or even just like a woman or just a person, if you are interested in an individual that says they're in an open relationship or an open marriage or they're, ethically non-monogamous or whatever, what are some red flags when you're
Yeah.
chatting with them that says they're actually not, they're just looking to step outside of their relationship and try and say, or this person not only maybe in that open, relationship or whatever, but has no fucking idea what they're doing. And this is just going to be a disaster for you as a person. So
Yeah.
what are some of those red flags?
Okay, so first off, you're not wrong. As depending on the app,
Mhm.
yeah, you may see like 50% of people, especially cisgender men, especially
Yeah.
saying, especially if there's an option for them to put um in an open relationship or open to being open, like okay
Mhm.
Cupid has the like there's this sort of gray zone area of like I'm open to
Yeah.
being open. You need to know how to vet, right? Like
Yeah.
you deserve to vet people.
Mhm.
So, one of the things I will do very early, one of my first questions is, please just, I want to know more about your non monogamy. How does it work for you? Ask it open ended. Do not put words in their mouth. Don't feed them too much information. If they can't explain to you what kind of dynamic they have,
Mhm.
just no, just like swipe away, swipe away. Language I would be looking for would be things about people saying, well, here are the terms I use. Here are the labels that work for me. Or some of the agreements I have. So they might say something like, well, I have a nesting partner and a co-parent. And we are really autonomous and we don't have a sex life anymore. That would that right there, that would make me think, okay, they're using some language and potentially they know. Now we have to remember though,
Yeah.
those guys are listening to this podcast too.
Yeah, they
Like
definitely are.
they're listening to this podcast, right? And so, y'all, if this is you, if you don't know the language, but you are faking it, if you're memorizing the things to say to bag people, like, dude, just put in the effort to learn how to do open relationships well. They're
Mhm.
awesome. Come on in, join the party, but don't half ass it. Like, learn how to do this well. And by learning how to do this well, you're going to be able to explain why. Why do you do non monogamy? Not just I do, but why? What's your why? What's behind there? You're also going to be able to talk about how you navigate big feelings. Because if somebody, a big red flag for me is somebody who says I'm open but no drama. You know what people mean when they say no drama? They mean
Okay,
none of
Cody Brown.
your drama, but
Yeah.
they're going to be dramatic. Like,
Mhm.
like we all have drama. I know that like we all want to imagine we're not, but we're humans. A great question that I will ask is like, how do you balance connections with other people? Like, how do you do that? Tell me
Mhm.
about how you handle it. And then listen for their actual descriptions, not just vague words, not just like something they just typed into ChatGPT and got it to spit out an answer.
Mhm.
How do they talk about their different partners and how they deal with that? Are they honest with you? Like, do you start catching them in just like little inconsistencies? Because the little inconsistencies are just tells about bigger inconsistencies. So go
Mhm.
ahead and pay attention to them. And I think one of my favorite questions early on is just to ask people, like, what are they passionate about? If somewhere in their list of stuff that they're passionate about doesn't include like self-development, learning, like
Mhm.
communication, like I want to know that people are putting energy in. And I don't believe that you can do non-monogamy well without devoting energy to that part of your life. So,
Yeah.
and this is, I have people who've done work with me who they're 30 years into their non-monogamy and still this is part of what it is because we have to keep updating ourselves. So
Mhm.
I like to ask some questions and I like to poke. I poke
Yeah.
before I start offering a lot of me. It's a lot like going to a psychic. Don't give them too much information because they'll just mirror it back to you. So ask the
Exactly.
questions early and let them show you who they are. And then, though, then you do have to decide, are they hot enough that you don't care? And this is a real question because so many of us want to say, like, oh, I want to pick high quality people, but then we let our pussy choose. Like we
Yep.
let it like I'm like, okay, but remember then that's a person to fuck and not fuck around with. Like
Yeah.
just we
I
can't.
I have always used what I affectionately call the dick to douche ratio. Like, if the dick outweighs the douche, we can put up with the
With
whatever.
some
But if the
stuff.
douche is outweighing the dick, goodbye.
Yeah, and I think just being real with myself because I have dated people that I'm like, they're not a good match for me.
Mm-mm.
What I have to do there is decide to watch for myself. How am I letting myself overinvest? How am I letting myself show up and try to do their work or make them into like if I squint and I push and I ask them to do exactly the right things and I like could I make it work?
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it. Don't do
Yeah.
it. It's so not going to get you what you actually want. God, I just thought of a great question. One of my favorite early questions to ask is just how do your current partners feel about your non-monogamy?
Ooh.
How do they feel? I mean,
Mm.
I, if they if they're anywhere in the realm of like, well, we don't really talk about it. It's not really a thing. We just vibe. We just do it. Like that's especially if you're a person who is new to this. You deserve to date people who like can show up for themselves in
Mm-hmm.
conversations. And let the STI conversation, let that like you as you're talking to somebody about that, a lot gets revealed. If they don't know how to have a really great sexual connection conversation, like what are they doing out there in their like this is not slut shaming. Go be slutty and learn how to have those conversations.
Yeah.
If you're being slutty and you can't have those conversations, now I'm concerned. My
Yeah. Now, is it a red flag? Because you brought up partners.
yeah.
Is it a red flag if they're kind of like, well, my partner just, they just want to out of sight, out of mind. Like, I'm allowed to do whatever I want, but like they're out of sight, out of mind. Or if you're asking like, would I be able to kind of communicate with your partner to like back that up?
Yep.
And they like, are there certain partners that like when their partner is non-monogamous, they are very like, I don't actually want to communicate with the people that you're with. So would
Yeah.
that be like a like red flag, immediately run in the opposite direction, or would that be let's investigate this a little bit further?
So it's a beige flag, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because some people really do have no interest in communicating with their metamors. Your metamors are your partner's partners,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's real. However, anybody who's been in this for a while understands that also vetting is real,
Yeah.
right? And so it is for me, it is a red flag if somebody is not willing to help me vet them, if they're not willing to participate in that,
Mm,
because I don't want the headache on the other side. So that might even be what their partner wants. They're still not a good match for me. Red flags aren't universal, right? That doesn't mean the person is a red flag. It means, oh, that's a red flag for me. Like,
mm-hmm.
that doesn't work in my life because I want to be able to verify that, yes. So, and that can be for some non monogamous people, there are some pretty easy workarounds that we've come up with. I don't necessarily have to be able to talk to you to be able to perhaps see your dating profile, like just see a snapshot, like so here's my partner's dating profile, like here's a snapshot. To be able to have, I've had text messages come, and my husband has provided text messages to people I've dated. He's hopped on the phone with people, like
Yep.
just taken like a couple minutes to do that. Um, Asking for verification is completely reasonable. You don't know what
Mm-hmm.
you're getting into.
Right.
And to pretend like that's not true, I mean, and most people, once they've been open for a while, realize that like even just a few months, you realize like, oh, this is part of what it is. We want access to more pie, right? Like we want
Yeah.
more. So yeah, we do have to show up with a little bit more information. We do like that's what there is. You know what? There's another great question that you can ask is, how do you support your partners when they're struggling with jealousy or insecurity?
Ooh.
How do you show up for them?
Yeah.
Because anybody who says, well, that's their problem, just remember you're going to be on the end of that's their problem someday.
Mm-hmm.
Or like if they say, well, it doesn't matter because they agreed to this.
Oh God, ew.
No. Do not pass go. It's like jealousy doesn't mean we can't do non-monogamy. God
You would
knows.
have to deal with jealousy and insecurity in a monogamous relationship. So
Yes.
answers like that just scream like you should probably be single.
Yeah, maybe you're just not a relationship person right
Maybe.
now.
Maybe go seek therapy.
Yeah, you need more time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not ripe yet. It's not ready. It's my experience of finding people who are a good match has been honestly the biggest education about who I am, right?
Yeah.
I'm not looking for people as good or bad, but good or
Mm-hmm.
bad fits for me at the phase and stage of my maturing that like and that's I don't date the same person now that I would have in my early 30s. Like these are
1,000%. Yeah.
very different people for me.
But that's
And
evolving as a person.
yeah. And that's like, I look back to the people I dated in my early 30s when I was just out of the gates in non-monogamy. I'm like, they're all fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't date them now because I've changed. And then the reality is, hopefully they've changed too. Hopefully we're all growing. So one of the things people may find is that if you're new to this and you're new and your only exposure is that you keep meeting people on dating apps who are open and you're like, oh my God, do I have to be open? No.
Mm-hmm.
No, you do not.
Right.
You absolutely do not. It is not the cool kids thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely get to have monogamy if you want it. And I can't say this strongly enough. There's no reason. We don't want to put monogamy on a pedestal and pretend like it's perfect. It's not, but we don't need to demonize it either.
Right.
So if you're finding like sorting through the apps is just for you, it might be time to go back to organic dating, which I know it's hard. I know. I get it.
It's an absolute dumpster fire out
It's
there.
rough.
After my divorce and getting back out there, I was like, this is why I was single for 8 months. Like,
Yeah.
this was terrible. And granted, as of this recording, like, I'm seeing somebody that's absolutely wonderful, and hopefully by the time this airs, like, they're still around. But there is some hope, just a little bit.
Yeah, and I think some of the hope though comes with like approaching dating
Mhm.
like this, like with the thoughtfulness that you've brought to these questions, Heather. They like we're putting ourselves out there.
Mhm.
Whether it doesn't matter, monogamous, non-monogamous, we're putting
Exactly.
ourselves out there. And a lot of the red flags even that I see are
Mhm.
really there because people they're not doing the work that it takes to be present to like, wow, this is hard. Dating is not just I bump into someone sideways in the high school
Mhm.
hallway and then I get married a few years later. Dating is a complex finding of yourself in
Mhm.
amongst all these other people. And I get it. I mean, here I am. I've been dating for 16 years while also being married, and it's weird, but it does remind me that like it's a constant process to just be out
is.
there and to put yourself out there and be vulnerable. Give
And
yourself a pat on the back.
yeah, and I feel like the older you get, the harder it gets almost, because like like I'm 33.
Yep.
So the people I was dating in my 20s and the people I'm dating now, like my requirements for what I absolutely need are so different than they were 10 years ago, even like 5 years ago. Because when I started dating my ex-husband 5 years ago, what I needed out of a relationship, I look back and I'm like, "Oh girl, no."
Yeah.
And now it's even harder because you're like, "Hey, you've got like," and I hate putting like timelines on things, but it's like you have 2 weeks of chit-chatting with me on the phone before you arrange a date before I'm like, "Goodbye," because I'm not going to be in some sort of weird talking stage forever.
Yeah.
That's just like where
Yeah.
I'm at. And I want you to be able to communicate. And what literally I joke with my friends that like dating in your 30s, and I know you know this, but like dating as you're like older, it's no longer like, what's your favorite movie and what's your favorite color? It's what percentage of your trauma do you think you still haven't processed, and how much of that are you going to shit all over me on a random Thursday?
Yes.
And I've
Yeah, and it's
asked
asking
people
that.
that
Yeah.
because
And it's
I'm just like,
asking
I
that
don't
and then
care.
assessing whether they're lying, right? Now you
Right.
also have to become a lie detector. Like, how do I
Oh my
oh.
God. I know. I'm over
Yeah.
here like just literally looking at like how they answer it. Like the screenshot gets sent to the group chat and I'm like, all right, how much of that is bullshit? Like, like looking between the lines, and it's tough.
It
But when you
is.
find somebody that actually wants to also put the work in, oh, chef's kiss.
Absolutely. That's it. Looking for people who are doing the work. That like
Mhm.
that's the key. And that's across all just w- across all relationship styles, all the
Exactly.
desires that you can have. Somebody who's willing to put in the work, which the work starts with working on ourselves.
Yeah.
Like that's and then we raise the bar. And now the trick is, can I keep the bar raised? Can I remind myself that I get to have this high bar, that I
Yeah.
get to keep it here?
Well, and like you were saying earlier, like there's certain things that you were talking about that work really well with non-monogamy that I'm just sitting here like, that should be a like non-negotiable for monogamy as well. Like when you were saying like, not the daily check-ins, but like those constant like calendar check-ins, those,
Yep.
because when you're integrating somebody in your life, whether it's, for monogamous or non-monogamous reasons, like that shit matters. You should be checking in. You should be like, hey, is there anything like bugging you right now that we can talk about? Because not a lot of people are very good at sitting down and going, we need to talk. Which honestly, if I hear we need to talk, I'm jumping off a ledge. So,
Right, which is why
it's
we need the calendar like,
yes.
ask the calendar to hold your space,
Hmm.
right? Like, calendars and timers are so underrated in
Literally.
relationships. If you're making I don't care if you made a promise to someone to bring them a cup of tea in 20 minutes, set the damn timer in your phone.
Yep.
So, for 17 minutes so that you're up making the tea, bringing the tea. I like,
That
whatever it
follow
is,
through will get you
follow
laid.
through. That will get you
That will get you
laid.
laid.
Yes. Yes, it will. And when it comes to the relationship agreement process, so many people that I've worked with, and my process has like I built it because I was so unsatisfied with having these like, oh, we're just in a conversation. Like we just talk about things when we need to. I'm like, wait, so we're just supposed to vibe until things break?
Yeah.
So we won't talk about this because what happens if we don't have a calendar date to revisit our assumptions and our expectations is that we will wait till something is fucked up.
And then,
And that's when we do it. And now we're doing it from a place of dysregulation. So my husband and I re-up our every aspect of our relationship every 3 years.
oh,
It takes time. Like it takes effort. Like we have a series of conversations. I have this whole thing that we go through to really like dig in and make sure we're on the same page. And then we decide whether we're staying married.
yeah.
But do it, we do it every 3 years, not just when we're not. Like we actually just went through an 18-month period where I was investing so much of my energy in, hey, we need to like really address some stuff that's not right in our sex life. And we went through all of that. And separately from us having some trouble in the relationship, we have these big revisiting questions,
Mm-hmm.
which means the ground of our relationship feels steady, even as we're going through the ups and downs of like, what works? What do I like? What do I not like? How are we?
Yeah.
It really does. It's a whole different thing to do relationship this way. And that's why it's really about conscious relating. It's not
Mm-hmm.
monogamy or non-monogamy. That's not the dichotomy. It's default
Mm-hmm.
thoughtless, unconscious following the scripts or consciously diving in, doing the effort, showing up. Like those are the two options.
Well, and like if you don't know what, because like I'm not saying I'm divorced. I'm clearly not a relationship expert. But if you're struggling to kind of come up with things to talk about, or stuff like, do you know how many card games there are now?
So many, exactly.
They're
Yeah.
great. I'm literally like, I'm buying at least two of them. So like when I'm in my next like actual relationship, like
Yep.
we're on a road trip, we're bringing the card games because, like, yeah, I
Yes,
love to
so
jam out and this,
helpful.
that, but we pick like 5 cards and we each have a conversation about it. That's really, especially if you're trapped in a car with somebody, it can either be an absolute nightmare, or you can really learn a lot about each other, or like settle things that you didn't even realize were necessarily an issue.
Yeah, yeah. Use tools beyond your current imagination. Like if the only way you show up to the relationship is with what you have today and you don't use anything to
Hmm.
help you like flip over those untended rocks and like look under there, like we don't know what we're gonna find.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. There's a non-monogamy card game out there now.
Ooh, what's it called?
Um, it's just called the non-monogamy game. It's
Beautiful.
very straightforward. Very, very straightforward. And I I think that one combines with the all the games from the And. They're my favorite.
Hmm.
I love their sets. Nice deep questions and casual ones. And I love that they have decks for friendship too, because like everything we talked about here,
Yeah,
apply it to your close friends too.
1,000%.
Like show up for them that way.
Hmm. I feel like we show up for our friends, honestly, more than we show up for our own relationships. And then we forget that, like, that level also needs to apply to your significant other. Because I know
Yep.
I've done it.
Yep.
I did not
Absolutely.
do those check-ins that we were talking about in our marriage. I did not do, it was more of a throwing it at my ex-husband and being like, this is where you're the issue.
Yep.
Because I couldn't see where I was. Now that I see where I was like, "Ugh, yikes." Do I think we could have made it work had I realized that? Still, no. We are two very separate people that are better as friends, 1,000%. But knowing that now, like, guy I'm dating, we had a conversation about something a couple days ago, and I literally checked in and I was like, "Hey, how are you feeling about that?"
Mm. Yep.
And then we had a
Totally.
conversation
Showing
about
up
how we
different.
both were, and we were still on the same page. And I was like, perfect. And that's just what I'm going to start doing, because I'm tired of like, I know I talk a lot, I yap for a living. So it's like, I need to sit back and become podcast host in my own personal life every now and then. So,
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. It's so delightful to show up fully in your
hmm,
relationship, um, until it's not. And I know if somebody's listening to this, they could think like, "Well, you keep talking about work. You keep talking about all the work." Like there is work, but
it's so fun too.
there's so much yummy stuff in
Hmm.
that work, right? There's so many questions that can be like a renaissance for a relationship. So if you've been in a dull spot, like this is often exactly what's needed. We have to actually
Hmm.
like shake it up and show up differently.
Exactly. Jolie, thank you so much for coming on the pod. This has been absolutely wonderful. I think part 2 is even better than part 1, honestly. So,
I love it. I love it. I love that we really did talk about the fact that it is so much bigger than just non-monogamy.
yeah,
Like we're all out here dating. We got
we're all out here in the trenches, man.
we are. Yes, and we got to show up to this conversation and just like name this stuff. So I'm so glad. Thank you for having me on, Heather. It was awesome.